Okay, so welcome back to DSE chapter 13, talking about human reproduction. And first of all, we would like to talk about the human reproduction in the male version first. So for males, we have testes and also the scrotum. So we need some technical biological terms. So don't use some slang that you learn from elsewhere in your exam paper. It is not acceptable. And for testes, it's also producing the sperms and also the male sex hormone. And we have penis and the epidermis. And for the epidermis is the region where you will store the sperm temporarily, and then the sperm will be traveled through the sperm duct and then finally through the urethra and then reach the outside world. And in the male reproductive system, we have the sementals, vesicles, progesterone glands, and corpus gland. And these three glands combine together to secrete the semental fluid. And this fluid will be used to activate and nourish the sperm. And activate and nourish are two different terms. And it will also provide a medium for the sperm to swim in. And finally, this semental fluid will neutralize the acidic environment of the vagina to increase the survival rate of the sperm. So after the male, let's move to the female. For the female, they have the ovary. The ovary is the region where the ova, that's the eggs, are produced, and also the female sex hormone. And then the ova will be transported by the oviduct and then to the uterus. And then the oviduct is also known as the site of fertilization. This is the first place that you and I ever exist. And then for the uterus is the place allowing the implantation of the embryo. This region will be the uterus, this is the oviduct, and this is the ovary. And with the vagina and cervix, which is talked in the next. And with the cervix, it will be dilated to allow the fetus to pass through during the childbirth. And for the vagina is the birth canal, and also it will provide an aseptic medium to reduce the bacterial growth. And in chapter 12, we learn about that we have different gametes. For human, the gametes are sperm and eggs. So I prefer the term ova. In singular term is the ovum. So this word I prefer because it's more technical, because egg is sometimes referred to general and also referred to the chicken one. And for fertilization is the fusion of male and female gametes. So let's talk about sperm first. Sperm will produce adaptations properties is stimulated by the hormone and also is produced in the testes and mature in the epidermis. And here is the shape of the sperm, which looks like a taptoid, and it is very small, and it can be divided into three parts. There's a head, midpiece, and also the tail. And for the head part, it will the aerosome, which is the enzyme to penetrate to the ovum external protective layer, and then the nucleus will contain the haploid number. Remember, his haploid is the n number of chromosome from the male counterpart. And then for the sperm piece, it will have a lot of mitochondria which provide the energy for swimming, and the final part is the tail for swimming. And here is the ovum. And in the plural form is the ova, and it's developed in the ovary, and it is bonded with 2 million of follicles right in your birth. So for all the girls, no matter you have passed the puberty or not, once you are born, you are born with all the follicles you are going to need. And then at puberty, the ovary will produce more female sex hormone to stimulate the ova to develop, and in a cycle of 28 days, which is known as the menstruation. And for the structure of the ovum, it is spherical in shape and cannot move by itself. It is a very important point and very different from sperm. And for the nucleus, it contains the haploid number of chromosomes from the female counterpart. And the Acetopress, it will contain the food reserve, which is required for the early development of the embryo, because the later development will be supported by the mother through the umbilical cord. And the cell membrane is surrounded by the J-code, which will later on be digested by the aerosome and the enzyme in the sperm. And at this moment, you should be able to compare sperm and ova in terms of size, number, and where they are produced. At this part, we would like to talk about the secondary sexual characteristics. So as long as there is a secondary, there should be some primary or first sexual characteristics. So what are they? So have some thought about it. And for boys, the secondary sexual characteristics include the beard growth and the hair in pubic areas. Remember, this term is the pubic area, not pubic area. If you spell it in public, it will be very embarrassing. Okay, and the larynx will be enlarged, and also the shoulder will be broadened for boys. While for the girls, you also have hairs in the pubic area. Remember, it's the pubic, including the armpit and also somewhere near your vagina, and also your fats will start to deposit in your skin. So girls are more difficult to get rid of fats because of genetic reasons, and in order to prepare for a pregnancy. And also your hip will get broadened, and your breast, not beast, okay, your breast will develop. So let's talk about the ovulation and also the menstruation cycle. So at puberty, the follicle will start to develop, and then the follicle will grow in size and then move towards the surface of the ovary, and then the mature one will burst and release the ovum, and then the ovum will be transported along the oviduct. Remember, it is being transported because it cannot move by itself. So what is traveling? What is used to travel it is the beating action of the cilia and also the contraction of the muscular wall. And while the remaining follicle will become the yellow body, it will then be degenerated if no fertilization takes place. And then in the uterus, it contains the uterine lining. It is rich in the glands, blood vessels, and also soft tissues. It's built up and break down periodically. So the blood you observe, that I'm talking about the female students, is this uterine lining, and it is a cycle lasts around 28 days. If you are not exactly 28 days, you don't need to panic. It's just a approximate number. So because it is a cycle, so it is hard to distinguish which is the start and also the end. But for easier teaching, we will define day 1 is the first day you have menstruation. That is the discharge of the breakdown of uterine lining. It usually takes 5 days. If it is like 7 or 8 days, it is not particularly normal. If it continues for a long period, so remember to talk to your mother or talk to your teachers. They may give you some advice, but at the end of the day, they usually guide you to the doctors. So from day 5 to day 14, the follicle will start to develop, and then the uterine lining will continue to get bigger. And on day 14, the ovulation will occur. That is the release of the ovum into the oviduct. And then the uterine lining will continue to thicken after day 14 days, from 15, 16, and so on and so forth to 28 days. And then the ovum, and probably with the fertilized egg, it will be transported towards the uterus if fertilization truly occurs, and then the uterine lining will increase even further. And at the age of around 50, the woman will stop to have menstruation. The menstruation may then become less regular and gradually stop, and it means that the female can no longer get pregnant because you don't have menstruation. It means that you're not producing any eggs. If you don't have any ovum, you have no chance in having the fertilization. If there's no fertilization, then definitely you will not get pregnant. So we call it as the menopause. In Chinese, we call it 停經或絕經. In common terms, we also known as the 更年期. And for the fertilization is the fusion of male and female gametes. Usually it takes place with the sexual intercourse, copulation, or mating, but it is usually because we now have the test tube baby, also known as the in vitro fertilization, IVF. However, for the process of the sexual intercourse, copulation, and mating is not required in the syllabus. Okay, so bear in mind that. However, in terms of the sexual intercourse, I would like to introduce 2 terms which will broaden your understanding of English. That is the erection and also ejaculation. Erection is the standing up of the penis, while the ejaculation is the release of semen from the penis. So for fertilization, it means that the sperm will swim through the cervix and swim up to the uterus, and then the sperm may finally meet the ovum in the oviduct. Remember, the place is oviduct. And then the enzyme in the aerosol will be used to digest the jelly coat, and then the sperm will release the genetic content and fuse with the ovum. And finally, it is called the zygote. As for fertilization, remember, for sperm, it usually remains alive for 3 days, and for the ovum, it will die if not fertilized within 24 hours, which is around 1 day. And during the process, many sperm die because some of them will be trapped by the mucus or killed by the acid environment of the vagina. And also, the sperm prefer lower temperature. However, in the female body, the body temperature will be much higher for it to survive. And also, some of them will be defective or immobile. So, at the end of the day, we are all winners of this competition, and it only have a very narrow window for fertilization. And if everything happens, okay, then you have the zygote. There's fertilization good take place, and then you have the zygote. And the zygote, similar to the ovum, cannot transport by itself. So again, by the beating action of the cilia and also the contraction of the mucus wall. And then the zygote will then divide mitotically to become the embryo because they get an increase in number of cells. And finally, the implantation means the embryo embeds to the fecal nutrient lining. And this is an embed that you start to develop the amino. Amino is developed by the embryonic cells. It will secrete the amniotic fluid, which has the following 5 functions: serve as a cushion to protect the embryo, provide a stable environment, prevent the embryo from desiccation, that is, becoming too dry, and allow the embryo to move around easily because it's the water medium, and it will also lubricate the vagina during childbirth. So as the embryo develops, you will also develop the umbilical villus and also the maternal uterine tissue, and then a combination of everything is called the Acetopress, and it is connected with by the umbilical cord. And in the umbilical, there will be arteries and veins. And recall your memory in the previous chapters, arteries is defined by the direction of blood flow. That is, it is getting away from the heart. And now in the umbilical cord case, you're talking about 2 persons. One is the baby and another one is the mother. Okay, technically it's the embryo and the mother. Okay, anyway, but let's talk it as the baby and the mother. So as we are going to define the arteries, we are defining based on the embryo. That's the baby's eye. So it is the blood leaving the baby's heart to the mother. So because the baby cannot do the breathing by itself and cannot eat by itself, so it can only pump out the oxygenated blood to the mother to the placenta. And then after the exchange of materials through the rings, and then we get back the oxygenated blood. So similarly to the pulmonary arteries and also pulmonary veins, these arteries and these veins doesn't contain the what you expected oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. For this case, arteries for deoxygenated, veins for oxygenated. Always remember the definition of arteries and veins is by the direction of blood flow. And then the placenta has also a very important function by ensuring the mother's blood will not mix with her child's blood, because her mother will have a high blood pressure which will damage the embryo's blood vessel, and also it's possible that their blood group are not compatible, that is, they have different blood group. And if you are a student having the knowledge in chapter 24 and 25 and you know about ABO blood groups, you may work out your family tree. So in short, for the placenta, your mother will give you nutrients, oxygen, antibody through the placenta. And then you're giving back carbon dioxide and other biomolecular wastes diffused back to the maternal. But remember, we are always using the terms diffusion because these are materials and they are down the concentration gradient. So mother are giving you good thing and the baby are giving some rubbish back to her. So always remember, be nice to your mother because at least you have been bad to her for like 9.5 months. So should deserve your respect. And here is talking about the adaptations for exchange of materials in the placenta. So remember, there is only one features and one functions. Okay. So here is the presence of the umbilical villus, and it will increase the surface area for exchange. And also the wall is very thin because it will shorten the diffusion distance. and it is rich in the blood vessels because it can help to carry out the materials rapidly and maintain the steep concentration gradient for diffusion. And the placenta will acts as a barrier to block harmful substance to reach the embryo. However, it is not working against a virus, nicotine, carbon monoxide, alcohol, or drugs. So that's why you will share the wire if you are having a baby, because the placenta cannot block those alcohol, and the little baby cannot take too much alcohol. So it's not good for a pregnant woman to take wires. And also it will secrete hormones to maintain the uterine lining, because if the uterine lining immediately breaks down, it will be a nightmare. So here are the development chart from the embryo to the fetus. So it is not required in your syllabus to remember every single week and the features developed. However, to appreciate life, you may have a walk on that, and you may also go to the YouTube and have a short video about the birth process. So here is from 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and 14 weeks, and so on. So finally, around 39 weeks, we are here. So before we are here, so there will be a term called twins. For twins, biologically, we have two types of twins. One is the identical twins, which means they have the same, or the fraternal twins, which means they are different. So what the same means? It means that they are from one ovum and from one sperm become one zygote, and this zygote suddenly become two different individuals, but they are genetically identical, so they must be in the same gender. However, for the fraternal twins, because they are involved two ova, two sperm to form two zygotes, that's why they will be definitely having genetic different component, which means that they can be different gender. You may also understand the fraternal twins as a simple sister brotherhood, which share the same uterus at the same period of time. So it is possible that they have a similar but never will be the same. And now the baby will finally want to come out, and this is the term called labor. And labor is also the same of labor force, that is the brutal force that you use to work. So it is the beauty of English. And for labor is the muscle of the uterine wall start to contract rhythmically. However, because the contraction may happen at different time point, so usually we will define the start of the labor by this term, that is dilation, and the amino breaks and the amino fluid flows out, that is 穿羊胎水. And then the fetus will be exposed outside by the contraction of the uterine muscles. And the umbilical will be tied up. And finally, the placenta will also be expelled. And the placenta is another name, because in the traditional Chinese medicine, there is a term called 子河居, is the placenta. So next time if you come across with this particular term, you may pay attention to that. And finally, the scale of the umbilical cord will become our nucleus. And then once it comes out, our parents provide us with food, clothing, shelter, education, and other things, because it will ensure a better development and a higher chance of survival for our baby, and we call it as parental care. And in the parental care, it will also include the breastfeeding, so it's preferred, somewhat preferred to use breastfeeding, because we are mammals and we have mammalian glands, and mammalian glands will produce milk, and it also carries some advantage, like it will contain the essential nutrients and also the antibodies. And for the nutrient is for the growth, and for the antibodies will help to build up the immunities of the baby. And we will also establish a bond between mother and the baby, and it is very miracle and mysterious, because I am a male, I have no idea what he's talking about, but you may ask your mother, okay? So it will help also the recovery of the mother uterus and also reduce the risk of breast and ovarian cancer. So it is recommended to breastfeeding. However, I also respect different female will have their own choice. So finally, we will talk about the birth control. First of all, why we need birth control, okay? Not all couples will want to have babies, okay? Some of them they have their own reasons or their other problems. However, in terms of the Earth, we have a increasing and perhaps too much people, and also we need a better family planning, because to raise a child, as you can imagine, you have a lot of parental care in terms of money and also time. So you have to have a good thinking about it. So for the contraceptive methods, we have 5 types. There is the hormonal method, refill methods, barrier methods, surgeon method, and also the IUD, intrauterine device. You can see there is a big cross in the refill method, because the method in Chinese is known as 安全期, however, it's not safe at all. For the hormonal method, is actually the use of the contraceptive pills. It can be taken in daily or by patches or injection. And for the refill method, is to avoid the mating during the fertile period. How to know the exact day of ovulation? It is known that there will be a sudden and small temperature rise of the female body on the day of ovulation. If you keep a good track record for that, you will know your day of ovulation. And if the days other than that will be known as the safe period. However, it is not safe at all, so definitely don't try it. And for the barrier method, include the diaphragm, condom, and sometimes you will also use the spermicide. And for the surgery method, it will be containing the Uterus is tied up, and also the oviduct is tied up. Usually we regard it as permanent. However, in terms of the news that I have, it actually can be reversible. However, in the general DSE public exam, we still regard it as a permanent method. But you should remember that after the surgical method, that is, for these things are tied up, the male will still have semen, just don't have any sperm, and the woman will also experience ovulation. So this is a very important biological term. And for the IUD, is the prevent of the implantation. It can be used for like a very long period by pushing the metal into the uterus. However, it is very argumentative, at least to me, because it's a moral question whether the fertilized egg is actually alive or not. So finally, here is an extract of the HAEA document. So for this part, that is the human reproduction, you should know about the general structures and plan of the male and female reproductive system, and the structures of sperm and ovum, and menstruation. For the menstruation, it is a 20 days, and in the middle of it is day 14 will be the date of ovulation. And for the fertilization, there is the meeting of the male and female gametes is also very important. And then once it is fertilized, it will lead to the development of the placenta, and also it contains the concept of identical twins and also fraternal twins. And for the birth process, it's not required in the examination that much, but for the parental care, you should know that actually for human, it takes a lot of care in terms of money and also other things. And finally, we talk about the birth control, that is different method in order not to have kids while we may still have a mating or sexual intercourse. So this will be the end of chapter 13. So I hope to see you guys next time. Bye bye.